So in the last episode, we took this motorbike engined Reliant Rialto, basically the same as a Robin, on its first ever drive.
It's not saying.
I was dreading, and I was also so excited for this day because this thing is pretty damn dangerous. Now, however fun the first drive was and however scared I got, yes, that's my hands shaking for some reason, it still didn't fully go to plan. I couldn't get out of first gear. And obviously with the ratios in this car, first gear just shot through in a second and I barely wasn't going any speed whatsoever. The gear shifters weren't changing up to second gear. Now this was really disappointing for me, and I know it was probably disappointing for people watching, so today we've got to fix this issue because you guys deserve a proper driving video.
Good morning, everybody. Now, we went through the absolute roller coaster of emotions in the last video driving this for the first time. It went really well and it also went not so well. It went really well because it drove, you know, it actually felt good. The brakes worked, like it was fast, like it started up, you know, the clutch worked, it did go good. But there's some parts that didn't go so good because I couldn't get anywhere other than first gear. And I put it down to the fact that the gear cable isn't strong enough. It's not bolted down enough. There's too much flex in the cable. And where I've bolted it initially, it's not in the middle. So it's got more play back than it has forward. So we need to fix that today, and it's not an easy job because even just getting the cable on where it is now wasn't an easy job, and that was the only place I could put the cable without massively changing the chassis, the box section, welding new things in. And it didn't work. It's not working, it's not going in second gear, and because there's just too much flex in the whole system. So this video is actually sponsored by SkyCop. Have you ever had a delayed or cancelled flight and it's caused you severe issues and thought, who the hell is going to be responsible for this? This actually happened to me recently. I was on the way back from Poland, I was watching Drift Masters, it was an unreal weekend, and the flight was delayed by over 3 hours. It didn't just put a downer on the end of my Poland trip, but it almost ruined my trip through Europe. I was driving for 4 days on no sleep, and it really took a toll on me. And all I literally got from the airline was a, oh, sorry about that. It's honestly not on, and you can now get compensated up to €600 for this. SkyCop are experts in flight and compensation regulations, and it's no win, no fee. You don't pay a single penny unless they successfully secure you a compensation claim. It's super easy to do. All you have to do is just answer a few short questions on their website to see if you're eligible, and you don't even have to have your flight information on hand until you know you can put a claim in. And the best thing about it is you can actually claim on old flights. If you've still got a grudge against that flight that annoyed you so much, you can actually still put a claim against it. These flight delays aren't going to get any better if we keep letting them get away with it, and SkyCop are dedicated to ensuring it's smoother, faster travel going forward. So if you have a recent and an old flight which has been delayed, cancelled, caused you stress or whatever, click on the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to see if you can actually claim back up to €600. It just takes only a few minutes, so go and give it a go. But let's get back to the Reliant. So we need to make quite a few drastic changes, to be fair, with the gear shifter. This part of it, I don't think this part of it is too much of the issue. Yes, it's not ideal, but I think the main part of the issue is underneath the car where I've bolted the second cable stop. If you have a look here, this is where the cable goes. So obviously the bike engine's mounted sideways, so the cable comes down here, does a loop, bolts to this floor, which is just not a good idea. Has like a bit of a degree, and then it pushes the gear lever. So there's just way too much play in the system. Now this wants to naturally be sitting here, but there was nothing here to bolt it to. So I pulled the cable and I bolted it here, but that means that there's way more cable to pull back than there is to pull forward, and it's not pushing the gear lever forward. So we need to fabricate something up here to bolt it in the right place. So I think the best thing to do, here's the cable, we need it like this, and then we can have it going pushing up and pulling it down like that, because the thread's going to go there. So we can actually run some angled box section down off here and bolt it straight to the bottom of that box frame like that. Right, so if we flip the rose joint from the front to the back, we can actually have a straight line there like that. Okay, so we're going to cut about, go a bit longer, we'll do
10, 12 centimetre, 2 lengths. Let's get them cut. So here is some box section that we got from Dan when we did the engine mounts. Now as you can see, if it's square, it's going to come off straight. But if we cut an angle like this and weld it like that, it's going to come down at an angle. And that is literally as simple as that. So we're going to weld it there, cut it to length, and bolt that through that. So we need to cut 2 sections of box section. I've measured it to about 12 centimeters. We're going to cut them somewhat similar, and then we're going to have it square on one end, and we're going to have it angled on the other. We kind of want to match up the 2 angles so that when we put them together, it's a straight line, and that's going to ensure that they somewhat come off the chassis at the similar kind of angle. So let's get underneath the car, clean where we're welding to, and we're going to tack it first of all and just make sure it's at the right angle before we start throwing some weld on. Okay, they're on. Not the prettiest welds in the world again, because I've hardly got any space under here, but they're fine. I had to be careful with this one because this is a removable A-frame, so I couldn't weld all the way up to the top, and I had to make sure to not weld over this nut as well. Actually, it's probably easier to weld over these nuts because then, oh no, because you have to fanny them around to get the A-frame in. So they're both on. This one had to go all the way around, but the tip broke halfway through, my welding tip, so it's definitely not pretty. This side's a little bit prettier over here, but I have to be really careful not to touch the top of the A-frame there, otherwise that would have been a bad day. But they're solid. Let's bolt this to here like this, and hopefully, well, we're a bit off, but I have to put a bit of washer in there. We didn't get the measurements bang on, but we'll have to put a washer in there. Right, there it is. We've got 2 bolts in there. It's solid. Again, it's not the prettiest thing in the world. This one's a bit bent. I'm really not that bothered. I've only got 2 washers on there, so it's straight-ish. So realistically, that should be enough for the shifter to work. Realistically. So we're going to get in and just test if the shifter is actually working. But first of all, we've got to go and tighten the rose joint because that is not tight. Okay, moment of truth. So the cable itself has just snapped, unfortunately. So I think what's happened is it was working, and I think it's just got looser and looser and looser, and I think it was just holding on, and that's when it stopped changing gears. You remember, it did actually change gears at the start, and then I think a few of them came off, and then that's when it wasn't pulling and pushing the cable, because this was just coming back and forth, and then it's just gave in, it's just snapped. So I actually think the main issue was just that the cable actually snapped inside here, or it came loose inside here, and then it actually wasn't pushing the cable, and it was just flexing here, and then eventually it's just snapped off. So I think what we've done down there is good. I think long term it was always going to do that potentially, because as I said, it was changing gears, and then now it's solid down there, and it's solid here as well. So I think, I don't know what's happened, but, well, I do know what's happened because it's right in my hand. It is a really old cable, so maybe it's just, you know, been worn out over time, and then it's just gave in. So I'm going to try, obviously I've put a lot of work into this setup, you know, bolting everything down, and I've just done a lot of work with the, you know, welding all them chassis extensions on and things like that. So we're going to try and keep this as we can, because it'll annoy me if I've done all that work and then we just go to a different system. So I'll give it one more try with the cable method. I'm a bit worried that the cable's just not strong enough to push it, because it is hard to get into neutral. It really is. So a part of me's thinking it's a little bit, you know, underpowered for the application, but I'm going to give it one more go, because why not? I've done all the hard work now in terms of mounting it and everything like that. So one more thing we do need to do is, in rear-wheel drive cars, everybody gets scared of welded diffs. Everybody gets scared, or everybody has a bad experience with welding diffs. Everyone thinks if you weld a diff, you're a scumbag. Rally drivers weld the diffs, you know, actually a lot of track cars have welded diffs, and that's just because it creates consistency. If you have an open diff, it's extremely inconsistent, and if you have an LSD, it gives you more confidence, but it's still inconsistent. In fact, I actually think LSDs are probably the most dangerous types of diff,
because they could open at any time, especially if it's an electronic LSD. My Jag had an electronic LSD, and it's one of the most dangerous cars I've ever driven, and it would have been a lot less dangerous if the wheels just locked up instead of unlocking. In a car like this, I need consistency. I need to know if it is going to slip, it's going to slip smoothly, and it's going to slip at the same time every time. Last thing I want is to be up in the revs and it's straight and all of a sudden goes whap, and that's what open diffs do, and that's what LSDs do. So we're going to weld the diff on this Reliant so it's consistent. This isn't me recommending going and welding your diff on your daily driver, because obviously there are downsides to that, and you probably your insurance will say, piss off mate. I've driven a lot of cars with welded diffs, and to me they're a lot less dangerous than driving cars with open diffs or limited slips. To be honest, I want to do some donuts in this. And we're not going to do it with an open diff. I have looked at pictures of this Reliant diff and it doesn't look like a normal diff, so I don't know how the hell we're going to weld it, but we'll know one way to find out. Let's take the diff out and have a look what the hell to weld.
Now this is not a conventional rear axle or a conventional rear diff, so most people in the UK watching this, you will never ever see an axle like this. It's called a live rear axle. But before I explain what a live rear axle is, I'm going to take off all the diff cover bolts and just try to split the sealant with some hammering. And first of all, just see where it splits, because it's covered in so much stuff. I actually can't even see where the diff casing is going to split.
Now, these aren't regular diffs. This is what's called a live rear axle. Basically, they don't have independent suspension or anything, and the diff and the axle is all part of each other. No such thing as drive shafts or anything. They're called a half shaft, and it's one big assembly unit. So you've got the hub, which is attached to a big long shaft which goes all the way in here, and that slots straight into the diff. So yeah, it's a live rear axle, and it's pretty similar to what I had on the Mustang. The Mustang was a bit easier because it had the diff cover at the back. So obviously you just pull the diff cover off, and then that's how you drain the fluid. There's no drain fluid on there. You just take off the diff cover. Same on this. There's no drain bolt anywhere. I'm trying to pull the diff cover off, but the diff cover is on the side. I don't care about taking the axle out. I don't care about taking the half shafts out. I'm just going to weld it all up. But to do that, I've got to get access to the gears, and to get access to the gears, I've got to get the diff cover off, and to get the diff cover off, I've somehow got to get the diff cover off. The only thing I can think of is that it is fully in two halves. Like, this side of the diff cover is a part of this side of the axle, and this side of the diff cover is a part of this side of the axle, and you've got to take the axle off to split them. I always get worried about unbolting anything on this car. It's all Imperial and you have no idea what size the bolt is. If it's a little bit rusty and you don't have the right size Imperial thing, it obviously just rounds it. Now, I'm never really a fan of anti-roll bars and I always really cut them off, but I think this car needs every help it can get with anything that's involved anti-rolling. There we go, it's a 7th 16th bolt. Fucking hell. Not only is everything Imperial, every single bolt is twice as long as it actually needs to be. And it's so annoying. But the more annoying thing is that if it's threaded, you don't just want to cut the bolt and fuck the bolt off, because you don't know if you're going to be able to get it again. Or you don't know if one of your bolts is going to thread into the fucking hole. I basically just have two big U-clamps which go around the leaf spring. So I'm going to try and get these off. I don't really have much space for a gun. I'm going to have to get a socket. Ugh. Spanner even. Not even a spanner. Ratchet. So each one of these has 2 nuts on. So, which is weird. This is 8 nuts. They've got a nut which is tight, and then you've got another nut. It's in here. There he is. 8 nuts for 4 bolts. So hopefully now we can whack through these U-clamps. There's one. There's 2. Now hopefully the axle, well, I think we try and whack this side of the axle, and hopefully it just brings the axle and the diff cover with it. What is going on here? Is that splitting? Oh my god, this is so annoying. For a car that's, you know, meant to be so simple, it's such a
dickhead. So I went on the Reliant page and I was like, is there anything that I'm missing here? And they were like, nope, it just splits. I was like, you sure? Because I'm whacking in some screwdrivers. They were like, no, as long as you get the leaf spring off, it just splits. I was like, all right. So I just went full send with a screwdriver. It doesn't really want to come. Can you feel it wanting to go, like, sit back in? It is coming though. Oh, I don't know. Like, it is splitting, but then it doesn't. See what I mean? It doesn't want to. Finally get it split. Bloody hell. Honestly, it's fucking tight. I don't think it helps that it's still got some studs on there. I'm kind of glad that we pulled most of them studs out. Honestly, otherwise I think it'd be a nightmare. But obviously where I'm doing that and it's bending, I think it's like pushing the stud and it's even harder to come out. So I'm just working my way around with a bloody hammer. But Jesus Christ. Let's get this big bastard in. Hopefully it'll split. I feel like it's bending it. What the hell? I've still not got it off. I've been in it for about... Look, it's solid. I've been in it for at least 20 minutes. I don't want to go too fast, I don't want to fuck up the gears. But why is it not coming off? It's the studs, it's 100% the studs. Right, there's no way it's coming off with those studs in. So I'll put 2 nuts on, put 1 nut on and tighten the other against the other, and then I'm just de-studding it. There's no way in hell it's gonna come off. So imagine if all the other ones didn't de-stud, you'd never get this thing off. Right, I think it's gonna come. I had to grind off the stud. Not only did I not have any other choice, it was bent from trying to get it off. I still don't think it's coming off. I can't actually believe this. How is it still on there? I've got it. You fucking piece of shit. Wow. You ruined it. Look at that. So I'm gonna have to seal it all. Fucking all the bits of metal I've smopped off. Yeah, I don't know. There wasn't another thing I could do about it, unfortunately. I'm gonna have to just sealant the living shit out of it, putting it back on. The worst thing is I couldn't even get the axle off the other side because all the bolts were snapping. The leaf springs weren't coming out, it was just twisting the car. And I couldn't get this thing off the other side. For some reason, they're just 10 times worse over that side, so I couldn't get them off, so I can't even get the axle out. You know, I'm hoping I can actually just pull that diff out there and then weld it up. Because if I can't pull that diff out and I've got to do it to the other side, it's not going to be good. But look at that. It's absolutely ruined. I'm just hoping I've not ruined the actual ring gear or anything by trying to get it off. Right, so I can just slide the diff out. There we go. There's the diff. All that for that. Yeah, no, I've not ruined it. There's the diff, guys. And this middle bit is what we're going to be welding. But I've got to be careful. This is what scares me doing these, is because you've got the half shafts which go in there. The half shaft's sitting there. So if you get any weld inside that spline, then the half shaft won't sit in. This is an open diff. So when you come and turn, the diff will spin these and go to one wheel and not the other. We want all of these gears moving together, and that's going to be a welded diff. So what we're going to do is, a lot of people put a bit of metal inside here, and that way they can never move. You know, put a bit of metal inside and weld the metal to all the gears. We have to be careful because the shafts actually go to the middle. I did check and they do actually come to the middle. So what we're going to do is we're just going to weld the gears together in the corners. That's going to stay away from the middle here, and should be strong enough for this application. So we're not going to be doing massive clutch kicks or anything. So I've got 2 wet rags just pushed into the splines just to hopefully save them if anything happens in terms of splatter. I've not got any anti-splatter, but I messaged Harry. I said, is there anything I can use? He said water and soap, washing up liquid, if you've not got anything else. That's good enough for me. Alright, let's just send it because this has been too much faffing around. Right, and here we go. So I started in the corners and just welded the gears together in the corners, and then I just joined the corners. So we got a big bead of weld going across each side. Bada bing, bada boom, and that's the same on the other side as well. So let's go and make sure it actually goes into the spines and we've not ruined the spines. I went even more overkill because I'd rather, but yeah, that's more than enough. Boom, there we go. That's that side on. Just flip it around. Boom, sits in there as well. Boom. So now we got now we got to try and put the damn thing back together.
Okay, so we've got the diff back in. I thought we were never going to get that job done. I can't believe how long that took. The diff's back in, it's all welded up, everything's cleaned up, everything ready to go. My only issue is that because of that last stud we had to grind out, I now can't bolt it back together. Now I know what you're probably thinking, just use another bolt. Yeah, this is an M6 times something I've never seen in my life. I don't think it's a one pitch because I've got some other big bolts there which I think are a one pitch and they don't match up. I've tried a load of bolts and I can't find a bolt which matches this pitch. It's obviously, I literally said it before we even took them off. I said that this would happen. I said they use stupid bolts and they're all Imperial and you can't use them. So, and the worst part of it, I probably would, if the surface was just normal, I probably would just like, you know, seal it and just put 7 out of 8 bolts in because it'd be fine. But because obviously we're going to have to seal the shit out of it because obviously now it's all indented and scratched, I don't think 7 out of 8 bolts are going to do it. So I'm going to have to wait until Monday for a bolt shop to open so I can hopefully get one of these bolts. These are Imperials, so it's going to be some stupid like 3/8 fucking, I don't know, some bullshit dash TPI something. So that's not going to be a job that I can finish today, unfortunately. But we've got stuff done, we've got a lot done. I'm also trying to find another push-pull cable to fit for the gear shifter. The main thing was just to do a donut in this car. I just wanted to do some donuts. So once the axle's back in and the diff's back in and everything's back together, obviously we can just shove it in first gear with our hand. And then we can do some first gear donuts. So I love you all, guys, and I wanted to potentially, you know, have a lot more done today than this, but I'm just happy that I've managed to do it. So I love you all, and we'll see you in the next one.